All right, guys. So if you remember, it was, I believe, less than a week ago that we reported on this supposed tentative ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah. Now, in the interim period, and granted, I'd been skeptical of this agreement in the first place, given what we've seen from Israel in handling ceasefire negotiations between them and Hamas, but in the interim period, in less than a week, we have some reporting here from CNN on how frequently this ceasefire agreement has been violated. Let's go ahead and watch this clip, and then we'll come out the other side because I also have some horrifying updates to get to out of Gaza as well.
I want to be very clear, though, Dana, that there have been continuous violations since this ceasefire took effect early Wednesday morning. CNN spoke to a UN peacekeeping source who says that Israel has violated that ceasefire about 100 times. But there are many people on both sides of this border who are desperately hoping that this doesn't escalate further and that the ceasefire prevails.
Over 100 violations, according to here from CNN, not exactly an anti-Israel source here, right? In fact, the opposite, but also according to UN peacekeepers who they spoke to, over 100 violations of this ceasefire agreement in less than a week. There is no way for me to possibly make that hyperbolic, for me to possibly exaggerate that in any way, shape, or form. 100 violations in less than a week. You can read their chyron here at the bottom of the screen. In response to Israeli strikes, Hezbollah fires 2 projectiles towards Israeli territory. Now, from what I've read, those 2 projectiles kind of basically did nothing. They didn't kill anybody or, really inflict any serious damage. But I've also seen other U.S. sources like the Associated Press, I believe it was, as posted by Asal Rod on Twitter, where their headline was like somehow trying to equivocate, somehow trying to portray this as if, oh, Israel is accusing Hezbollah of violating the ceasefire and Hezbollah is accusing Israel of violating the ceasefire. There are no two ways about this from the reporting, at least that I've seen, where it essentially looks like this ceasefire agreement that was put into place was nothing more than a surface level posturing, right? You don't violate a ceasefire over 100 times in less than a week if you actually meant to implement that ceasefire, right? Now, if you actually look at the technicalities or the specifics of the agreement that was put in place, of course, we knew from the beginning that Israel was demanding full and total reign, full and total, capabilities in regards to continuous strikes inside of Lebanon as a part of that ceasefire agreement. So I guess my main question would be, like, what does this ceasefire agreement actually mean? What are the parameters of this ceasefire that Israel is able to operate under, with it continuing to be thought of as a ceasefire agreement? 100 violations doesn't really read as a real ceasefire, to me at least. Now, we did have this ghoul of all ghouls, Matthew Miller, responding to this situation here, and Asal Rod here had a side-by-side, up and down comparison between that report we just watched and Matthew Miller's response here to the situation. But let's go ahead and hear what State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller had to say about this escalation.
So what we have seen since the ceasefire went into effect is it being successful. Broadly speaking, it has been successful in stopping the fighting. If we do see violations of the ceasefire, we'll go to the parties and tell them to knock it off. We want to see the ceasefire hold. We want to see it be successful.
UN
will go to the parties responsible for violations of this ceasefire and will tell them to knock it off. What? What does that mean? What does any of this mean in the context of U.S.-Israeli relations? That's my question here, I guess, to Matthew Miller. We're going to tell them to knock it off? That's the response here? Is this the same sort of response that you gave to the Israeli military when Joe Biden said that going into Rafah was a red line? You're going to continue to tell them to knock it off? To knock it off. I mean, it's sort of like a perfect encapsulation of the U.S. policy in regards to this year-long plus Israeli genocide in Gaza. Oh, well, tell them to knock it off. Well, what does that mean exactly? Because you're clearly not willing to enforce U.S. law in regards to withholding weapons to Israel. You're clearly not willing to use that sort of leverage. So what does it mean exactly? Joe Biden, this lame duck president who's given Benjamin Netanyahu everything that he could possibly ever ask for, he's going to go to Benjamin Netanyahu and say, knock it off. I thought we were doing a ceasefire here. Cut it out. Quit it. What exactly are we talking about here? This is meaningless. This has absolutely no substance behind it whatsoever, right? Now, we also had, as posted here by Channel 4 News, that, as far as I've seen, has done some pretty solid investigative reporting throughout the entirety of the genocide in Gaza, as well as this escalation in Lebanon and with Iran as well. And they report here that Israel's new defense minister, after the old one, Yoav Gallant, who is facing arrest warrants from the International Criminal Court, but this new defense minister in Israel is saying that if the ceasefire with Hezbollah collapses, which 100 violations would seem to me as though it's on the verge of collapsing, at least, if not, it was never really in place in the first place. But they say if this ceasefire collapses, the Israeli military will no longer differentiate between Lebanon and Hezbollah. So my interpretation of this, at least, would be that the Israeli military, moving forward, will not differentiate between civilian and Hezbollah military targets moving forward. I mean, how else would you possibly interpret that? We will not differentiate between Lebanon and Hezbollah. Now, you could make a strong case that the Israeli military has already, up until this point, not been differentiating between Hezbollah military targets and Lebanese civilians. You could make a very strong case there, but this kind of a statement screams to me that this ceasefire was never really serious in the first place, and maybe it could potentially escalate even more so than it has so far moving forward. I mean, it's hard to understand how to interpret this kind of a statement here, but given the incentive structure that we know that Benjamin Netanyahu has at this point, it seems like that's the direction that we're going for, right? A complete escalation moving forward, heading into the Trump administration that we know will have absolutely no, tiebacks or no sort of restraints on the Israeli military. Now, we also have this, moving on from this Israeli Hezbollah ceasefire that never really seemed to be a ceasefire in the first place, because we have some updates out of Gaza. And I don't really think it's possible for me to exaggerate the utter and complete depravity of the clip that we are about to watch here, but here we have some reporting from Al Jazeera on an investigation that they've been doing on something that I've reported on, I believe, months ago at this point, like probably 6 to 8 months ago. We talked about this story of the Israeli military in Gaza reportedly using some of their quadcopter technology to use the sounds of babies or the sounds of children in order to lure people out in Gaza in order to then allow them to be made into valid targets. This is one of the most depraved things that I have ever seen in my entire understanding of warfare in my life. Let's go ahead and watch a little bit of this Israeli or this Al Jazeera investigative report here. And brace yourselves, guys, because this is about as fucked up as it gets.
جماعة الخير كواد كابتر تطلق صوت أطفال الآن من مخيم إنصارات امبارح استشهدوا شاب طلع مسكين يشوف ايش الصوت في مدرسة طبعا طلع والله لقى صوت.
In mid-April, we were informed that Israeli quadcopters were emitting bizarre sounds, including baby sounds or women screaming. I went personally to Nusayrat and I interviewed several Palestinians separately, and the testimonies were almost identical. Quadcopters were for two consecutive nights, on the 14th and the 15th, I guess, of April. They were emitting baby sounds, playing sounds of screaming women. The quadcopters apparently played these sounds only to lure citizens out of their homes and to find someone to shoot. And this was confirmed by actually the reports that we followed up on at hospitals. There were cases of people getting injured by these quadcopters after going out to figure out what was the sound to try to help.
قطع الساعة 1 في الليل فجأة سمعنا مرة بتزعق في نص الشارع الحقوني النجدة ومعها عيل صغير يعني صوت عيل صغير بيطلب النجدة معها الصوت كان بيطلع من باب الدار وكبتر من 4 مراوح طلعت برضه بين الخيم وقعدت تزعق ونفس الحاجة رغم اننا بنعلم في الخيم قلنا له واحد يطلع ده لكن نظام صوت ابو انس الشحرور عندنا في المنطقة في راسه
كل واحد اللي بيفكر يعمل الشيء احنا نوصله واذا لازم نوصله
ولا بنسوي شيء ولا بنسوي شيء احنا قاعدين نقول مكيفين حل عنه.
What do you even say at this point? I mean, with all of the things that I've covered over the last, 14 months of this genocide, it's approaching some sort of a difficulty for me to imagine that it could get more depraved as the days go on, but somehow the Israeli military figures out a way to make it more depraved, more immoral, more disgusting than the day before. And this is a perfect example of that. We have reportedly Israeli quadcopters that are playing the sounds of babies and of screaming women in order to lure out Palestinians who would presumptively go to want to check on what that sound was to help people, and then being shot by these same quadcopters. What the fuck do you even say at this point? Is there any possibility that we could imagine a more depraved military offensive? I mean, this is supposedly the most moral military in the world, according to Israel, according to the United States, apparently as well. This is the kind of shit that we're supporting. I mean, what do you even say at this point? What do you say? It's almost comical to the extent that it's depraved, right? Now, at the same time that we have reports like this, we also have Save the Children. Their global media apparatus here on Twitter is saying that they are devastated and outraged at the recent killing of their staff member, Ahmed Islaim al-Qaidi, in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. This is their second colleague that has been killed in Gaza. They say, quote, "We condemn this attack in the strongest terms and demand an investigation," according to the CEO of Save the Children. We also have at the same time some reporting here from Dropsite News saying that the Israeli military has reportedly destroyed 3 power generators at the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza. This is one of the hospitals that is the last operational, sort of even semi-operational hospital in the area, and relied on this backup power to run critical medical equipment due to the blockade. And you can see here in this video some of the destruction to the power generators there that have been clearly, I think, largely impacted by this war. Now, this is one of those hospitals that we have seen repeatedly attacked by the Israeli military, and it doesn't stop there, because we also have reporting here from Al Jazeera English that 5 Palestinians, including 3 World Central Kitchen workers, have also been killed after a car belonging to the WCK was targeted by an Israeli drone in Khan Yunis. Now, you might see this picture here, and it might look familiar, because this is the last time that we covered a strike on World Central Kitchen workers, right? This is the organization that is run by Jose Andres, a world-renowned chef, and they have been trying to deliver some obviously much-needed aid to Gaza, and this is the second time, at least that I've reported on, where they have been directly targeted. Now, the picture that you're seeing here on your screen is from the previous strike that we covered, where they were in coordination with the IDF, and yet you see, the impact of what I believe was a drone strike here directly through the logo of the World Central Kitchen. Now, as obviously, again, as reported here by Al Jazeera English, there were 3 World Central Kitchen workers who were, once again, killed by the IDF as a part of their relentless and unending targeting of aid workers inside of Gaza. Now, we also have a video here. I wanted to show you guys a quick little video of ambulance crew workers who were targeted, again, by Israel. You can see, you can see the bullets at the first part of this video streaking across. It looks like they have tracer ammunition or something here. And they also show a second side-by-side of journalists earlier in the day trying to run from similar attacks by the IDF. Both of those clips happened in the same day there. Now, we have a sort of like a roundup here by Prem saying that in the past 2 days, Israeli forces have killed 3 World Central Kitchen aid workers, killed a Save the Children staffer, killed a Gaza Soup Kitchen chef, killed an ICU director, attacked and killed hundreds of displaced Palestinians, as well as shot a 10-year-old girl. Now, I saw the video, the images of this girl who was shot. I can't even show it to you guys in this video because YouTube would not allow me to post it. This is just a continuation of the targeting of children inside of Gaza. Keep in mind the reporting that we have seen over and over and over again of even Western, medics and Western doctors who have gone over to Gaza and have repeatedly reported that they have seen children who have been targeted by Israeli snipers, right? Shot through the head, shot through the chest. This is something that we see over and over and over again. And this brutality was just the last example of that, of a 10-year-old girl who was shot by an Israeli sniper. Now, to finish off here, just to give us a little bit of a glimpse in terms of the mindset of influential figures in Israeli policy right now, we have here from Yunus Tarawi saying that the former IDF chief of staff and Israeli defense minister has said, quote, Israel is carrying out an ethnic cleansing in northern Gaza. There is no Beit Lahia, there is no Beit Hanun. They are currently operating in Jabalia and cleaning the area of Arabs. So, we are continuing to have to pretend as if the goals of the Israeli government are not clear. As if the goals of the Israeli government are not obviously a genocide in the Gaza Strip, which, according to prominent members of the Benjamin Netanyahu government, like Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, the goal in Gaza is resettlement. The goal in Gaza is annexation. But then at the same time, we also have the continued ethnic cleansing in the West Bank as well, which is only going to accelerate and is only going to get worse under the incoming Trump administration.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying